its aqueduct system up near the Twin Oaks treatment plant. So not only moving the water 10 miles, but we're lifting it over 1,000 feet at the request of the Water Authority. You can see some of the pipeline construction that's going on. So just at a high level, as of October 1st, our original construction schedule was 35 months. We're on target to be done in 31 months. We have 21 months behind us. And so we expect to be in commercial operation late summer this coming year. The Orange County Water District Board of Directors had a site tour earlier this year. The MODOC Board of Directors was invited down. I would invite down any number of the producers, your boards of directors, your city councils, or members of the public that wish to visit the site and understand what's going on. Huntington Beach project, I think everyone here is familiar with. Just wanted to talk about how the project fits in. And maybe let me start with a little bit of history and how we got here. I'm going into my 7th year, full year of employment with Poseidon. When I got involved, the Orange County water community and Poseidon were already engaged in water purchase discussions. The MODOC and about a dozen Orange County water agencies, many represented here today, had all signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, to discuss the purchase and distribution of the water. That was back in 2008. In 2012, in February, we obtained our permit from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And we believed at the time that that was the second to last permit that we needed to finance construction, the coastal permit being the last permit. At that point, we had non-binding letters of intent from over a dozen agencies for more than the capacity of the plant. I think everyone acknowledged at that time that those LOIs were soft. And they weren't based on enough information for anyone to make a commitment at that time. And so we had asked the water agencies that were interested if they would enter into the term sheet phase with us and negotiate a water purchase agreement. And the response we got was, fine, but we need to know what the cost of water is. That's probably the single most important issues we're talking about today. So throughout 2012, we developed a cost estimate for the project and we developed a term sheet. In February of 2013, we presented it to the working group. That term sheet is still on MODOC's website today. And the result of that process was the majority of the agencies said, we prefer not to move forward as retail agencies with Poseidon. We think this is a regional project. There's either concerns about cost or concerns about the ability of individual retail agencies to negotiate water purchase agreements. And so into that board stepped the Orange County Water District. In May of 2013, the district's board unanimously resolved that it is the policy of the district to consider developing a variety of local water resources, including seawater desalination. And at the time, the board resolution found that in the absence of the development of new local water supplies, the groundwater producers would have to significantly increase the amount of imported water needed to make. That's how this discussion with OCWD started. I should back up and remind the group that in 2010, OCWD joined the working group and signed the MOU. 2014, Mr. Schoenberg has already talked about the long-term facilities plan. What the plan states, as I understand it, and Mr. Kennedy, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there is an anticipated 20% increase in the need for water, about 90,000 acre-feet by 2035. Our project is the single largest source of water to offset that future increase in demand. If you take the third phase expansion of GWR and the Poseidon project, you can substantially wipe out that future deficit and anticipated growth in water demand. We'll talk a little bit about where we go from here as we envision it, and this is very high level. So 18 months now, OCWD has been doing their financial due diligence on the purchase of the full capacity plant for its 30-year life. The CEC report is in final draft form. We understand it will be presented to the board after public comment in December, at which point we have asked the OCWD board to make a determination about whether it wants to take the next step in the process. This is similar to where we were back in 2012 with the retail agencies, and that would be a term sheet or an MOU, which is not a contract, it's not a binding agreement, but it is a commitment to negotiate in good faith a water purchase agreement. That decision by the OCWD would set off a chain of very important events. So it's conditioned precedent, so to speak, in terms of the steps that we need to follow. The risk allocation that Mr. Moore talked about, what role OCWD would be playing, all that would have to be determined after OCD makes the decision that it wants to move forward with the project. Distribution system integration that Howard just talked about. Is the water going to the groundwater basin? Does it go north? Does it go south? How much needs to go south? Those issues have been studied for several years, but they need to be resolved. The Met LRP incentive, as Mr. Seckel said earlier, that application was submitted a year ago by MoDOT and all of the Orange County Met member agencies. The condition precedent there is that we need a coastal development permit before Met would act on that application for the incentive. Coastal development permit, we are looking at a hearing no earlier than June and probably as late as October of this coming year. Coastal Commission meets in Southern California in March, June, August, and October, so that's kind of the window of opportunity. The EPC process, that's how we would deliver the project, engineering, procurement, construction. At that point in the process, we'd be finalizing the cost estimates, refining the term sheet, and then we would enter water purchase negotiations with final costs fully known based on a permitted project that has a turnkey fixed price contract for not only construction but the operation of the facility. We anticipate that process running through the end of next year, and then we can give the notice to proceed to the construction contract either by the end of next year or very early in 2016. So very high level, that's kind of the status of the project and where we see the process being. I think that's any questions.
Thank you very much, Scott. And our groundwater producer meetings typically last from 9:30 to 11 o'clock. We've got a little bit of a late start, not too much. So if any of the groundwater producers have scheduled other meetings or need to take off right now, that's totally appropriate. But why don't you just stay up here for a minute, Scott, if you could. We are going to continue on with the meeting, is what I'm saying. Yeah, we're going to take questions. And I'd like to take another 5 or 10 minutes of questions or comments on Mr. Maloni's presentation. So, Howard?
I just want to remind everybody to sign in, so if they did want part of the handouts, if you make sure that you're on the sign-in sheets.
Right.
It was kind of a big group.
Could you hand that around, please?
I can do that.
Yeah.
I'm a consultant.
Get it going. There you go.
All
right.
I'll pass out cards once.
All right. So, any groundwater producers, South County folks, have any questions or comments? Mr. Lamar.
Director Lamar. Steve Lamar, I'm president of the Irvine Ranch Water District. I just want to thank OCWD and the Producers Council for doing this workshop. This is really helpful. And as you heard from our general manager, Paul Cook, we have a number of public policy questions. I think this is one of the most important water decisions in Orange County. I think it's comparable to the groundwater replenishment system type of decision. So my hope is as this proceeds, and I didn't really see it, Scott, on your slide there, that you're going to have a lot of additional workshops, hopefully in January, February, where some of the issues that we have and other people might have can be addressed as part of the process. Is cost going to be shifted to producers, or cost going to be borne by the retail agencies that actually buy water? So again, this has been really helpful. I learned a few new things today, and I think we do as we go through this process. So I'm just hoping there's going to be additional workshop opportunities on the topic before decisions are made by OCWD. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Deaver.
Well, maybe I should start. I got my degrees from the University of Virginia.
Very good. All right.
As far as I know, we regularly eat both Brown and Harvard. So I've actually been kind of watchdogging this project since before Scott came on board. Originally, a lot of the interest by the water agencies was the offer to sell the water for the current price of imported water, and Poseidon would assume the risk. That was obviously a loser for Poseidon at the beginning, but would assume the risk that those cost curves would eventually cross over, and your profit would come from that point in time when imported water got more expensive than producing seawater. Obviously, you took on a lot of risk with that offer, but there were rewards taking on that risk. Why did that go away? When did that go away? Why did that go away? Now that you're shifting that risk to the water agencies, why do you get the same return on investment?
Scott?
Are you suggesting that Certified would support the project if the cost was equal to Met?
I don't
Okay.
have any interest in your profit at all.
Joe, you're correct. The concept that we originally offered that we thought we could finance and make work is what we called a voided cost cap, which meant that we would sell the water for no more than the cost of Met. We would capture the difference in a tracking account, which would grow with interest over time. And once the lines crossed in the graph, so to speak, and Met was more expensive than imported water, we'd pay ourselves back what we had essentially subsidized in the early years. That approach was based upon the project receiving the Met LRP subsidy in San Diego. And you'll remember that in early 2010, San Diego sued Met. And and they had an approved LRP for the project, and that LRP never came to fruition, so a huge hole was blown into that financing approach. David Moore can probably speak better than I can about other due diligence that the Water Authority did on that structure for financing, but it ended up not being financeable. It wouldn't work if you couldn't contractually guarantee that that Met subsidy was in place. And even if you could, I'm not sure that that approach would work today. So we no longer offer that approach because we didn't think it was realistic in Huntington Beach, because it turned out not to be realistic in San Diego.
Very good. Who's got the sign-up sheet right now? All right, keep moving it, please. All right, any other questions or comments? Mr. Cook?
I was just going to, forgot to mention, if you're interested in our policy, interested in RWD's policy principles, we brought a few copies, and it's also on our website, under our policy principle pages. We can send out that link as well. So if you want a hard copy, come on by after the meeting. You got about 40 cents.
Just ask a question. Are your comments on the CBC report going to incorporate the policy?
We haven't finished our comments on the CPC report. We have some initial comments, but we'll be generating that letter within the deadline. So it'll probably be a week or two.
So in order to get the policy principles, just go on your website.
Sure, here we go.
All right.
Not these ones. These
Yeah, I just noticed.
Very good. Anything else? Mr. Johnson?
I just had one question. You know, and I've heard some comments through Metropolitan, maybe Rob, or somebody from ODOT can help us out. What is the projected increase per acre foot net as their share of the repair of the state water project? I heard up to like $200 an acre.
Carl, do you have that number handy?
Yeah, the tunnel project goes through and all that you're talking about.
Yes, I know that they, you know, that the contractors got their share, so.
Right.
You know, if we're sitting at fully treated net cost of $970, and that's tier 1, what's the idea of what the cost could go up for the next 15 years if the, you know, if the delta gets fixed?
Yeah, and Howard, the other part of the question that you didn't ask is what is the projected cost of net water for the other components, and what's the long-term projected cost for the net water? That was covered in the CEC report, and we've worked with Metropolitan to get estimates of what the future costs of net water will be, and projecting net costs is about as easy as projecting what future ocean desalination costs will be or what future energy costs will be. As far as the impact that the BDCP will have on the Met cost, typically what we get from Met staff is they think it will increase the Met costs by 1% to 1.5% increase per year, meaning when we're looking out to the future, if general inflation is 3%, then you'd add another percent onto that, and that would include the cost of that water with the BDCP. So it'd be a 4% over the long run. I think the CEC report used 5% or maybe a little bit more for the future cost of net water. There is an interesting chart in the CEC report that tracks the net increase costs over time, and they never go up. They're kind of stair-stepped over historical perspective, and so depending on when you start looking at the increase in cost and how they evolve from there, you can get an escalation anywhere from a low escalation to extremely high escalation. But Met right now is taking the position that they think their long-term rate increases will be somewhere between 3 and 4% over the long run. Met has done a better job of controlling some of the other costs associated with that. So once again, it just depends on which way you're betting for the long run. But the CEC report does a reasonable job of projecting those costs, and then we have additional information on that if anybody's interested in it.
Very good. We have time for one last question, comment. Director Salon.
Right, I have two questions, one of Howard and one of the economic projection. You know, I was curious what the amount of surcharge per acre foot was for using the pipeline owned by Huntington Beach and Mesa for you, and I was questioning in one of the early charts showing the need for this water was this projection of a high, middle, and low anticipation of what the base flow in the river was going to be. And I was wondering if that took into account that 1 million more people that are projected to be living in the Inland Empire and contributing to wastewater during that same period, or was that based on the current population, which would be hard to believe?
Very, very good. So those are two questions. Why don't you, do you have the answer for the first one, Howard?
I don't remember.
Yeah, you sound like Bill Clinton.
Well, we did. Oh, no, that was too much. Now, we can go back to the Brown joke, but that one's all right, but I didn't vote for it. So either way, yes, we did. There was an existing agreement that was talked about, and in the preliminary studies, there was a pre-purchase agreement. So, and I'm going by memory, and again, it's in the report that I just gave Paul, so you'll have that. And I certainly can send you the report too. If I remember, there was a $1 million buy-in fee for discussion, and then there was a concept and idea of OC 44. So what we took, there was the net present value of the pipeline, what it would cost to reconstruct it, and then there was a lease agreement put to it. But that agreement never came to being
But
Uh,
signed.
the rough order of magnitude of cost per acre foot was good.
It was a little less than $10 an acre foot.
Okay.
It was like $8 or $9 an acre foot. And then the high, medium, and low base flow projections out for 2030, 2040, those were developed by Orange County Water District staff. And maybe one of you two can let us know where those projections came from, or maybe we can get back to them.
Yeah, they came from SAPA. We can get you the details behind it.
And it anticipated a million and a half more contributing wastewater flow out there?
Yes.
Very good. So I want to thank the Orange County Water District Board for joining us and making this opportunity. I want to thank the South County agencies. We are represented with El Toro, Bucco Canyon, Molten Miguel, Santa Margarita. I think that's it. So a good representation of South County. Next steps, we will throw it back over to the Orange County delegation here.
Just one thing, this was agendized as item 11.
Yeah.
So if we're complete with item 11?
I believe we're complete with the workshop.
I have a question for the Orange County Water District. I think the ball's back in their court.
Okay, so before we're complete, I believe the question is, what are the next steps? Are we having more workshops, more issues?
Is that your question?
That's pretty much my next question, because this was, obviously I think a few of us got to chip in, but I would like to see a lot more thought and put in and contributions by the others. I think what this Director Lamar said is a serious policy implication for this agency as well as the whole county, and I think some of the input that you're going to receive from the other producer agencies does need to go through elected city councils, elected water district agencies, and that takes time as well. So I was wondering what the next steps are, because I think if the plan is to take it to December and be done with it, I think that's going to shortcut the process and really limit a lot of folks' ability to bring the true policy feelings of their electeds back to OCWD. So I wasn't sure what the timeline was.
Well, I think the current timeline was they have another workshop in December, but then to take it to our board in January. And that's what our board decided at the last board meeting. So it would be up to them to change that schedule.
Mr. Calkins?
Appreciate the workshop. You know, I see you working towards approving a term sheet in early in 15, which is only a few months down the road. Are we missing something? It seems to me that there's, you know, what your position is on a project this significant and this expensive is based on how it will impact you, both on improving your water supply reliability and increasing your costs. I think it's a wonderful project. I just don't want to pay for it. Or, I want to understand that. It seems like there are three main approaches for implementing a project like this. And we're only thinking about one. One option is for Met to do it. One option is for Orange. If that doesn't work, one option is maybe Orange County should do it. And then if that doesn't work, well, maybe OCWD. But those who don't pay will benefit because the region will have more water. I just think we need to try to figure out how to lay out those options so we can look at which of those make sense instead of just focusing on one of those options.
Yeah, Don, you've been consistent in talking about what is the context. It shouldn't be ocean desal up or down. It is, what's the context of this? What are our goals? I mean, anything, the final expansion of TWRS, or if we do the Prado sedimentation, or any of those things, what is the goal that we're aiming for? And, let's look at all these projects together in context to see if we want to go forward or not. What you're ending with is kind of what I tried to start off with, and it is what the producers kind of, what's our comment on the long-term facilities plan. So, understood. Anything else? Do we need to do public comment? I think we do. How about if I throw the meeting back to you? Let's give all the presenters a big round of applause.
Do we have any public comments?
I'd just like to make a real brief comment. My name is Debbie Cook, and I want to point out that the Orange County Water District's water rate has increased greater than MWD over the last decade.
At your WIC meeting earlier on, you had a presentation about what do we do in the next year or two if we have a continued drought. None of these projects would be able to address that. And the impact to the people who are the current producers would be one thing, but the impact to OCWD would be another, because of reduced sales by having a lower PPP, which is being contemplated, then you have to raise your rates to provide debt service coverage on your existing debt. Now the district is looking at expanding phase 3, which is not going to be cheap. And other projects and participating in this project, making a long-term commitment, which is the same as doing the project. So the impacts to the credit rating really need to be taken into consideration, because it's so bad right now that you have to increase your rates to protect your coverage so you don't go into default on your current debt, and you're looking at spending much more on this project and the expansion of GWR, and you go into a dry period. Half the benefit of local projects goes to people outside of the county, because of the MWD allocation process. That puts a tremendous, credit, risk on OCWD and therefore all of us. So before we would go to a term sheet or look at that, I would ask you to do financial study, what would happen in a dry period of time? What would be the impacts on coverage, and what would be the increases to the rates that would be necessitated during those periods of time by taking on additional credit or additional lease obligations?
Kathy, I just would like to add a
Yes.
comment, and it's related, I think it's important we have totality of view as our rates, for example, have increased. But if you look at what the cost of water would have been to purchase imported water versus the groundwater replenishment system, since that's gone online, we've saved taxpayers net $95 million. So while we pay a little more to invest in that infrastructure with the reliable water, the savings from having to purchase imported water has been significant for the taxpayers in our constituents.
I just think we should remember that our groundwater is a third of the cost. Just counting on this. Okay, is that it for comments?
Just
Yes.
add one more from Santa Margarita's perspective, and that is reliability does cost more than imported water. For us right now, we're 100% imported water. So we're happy to sit down and continue discussions and continue participating in workshops with OCWD. We appreciate the leadership, your board, and Mike Ishel, just to further analyze this project. So, thank you for that.
Sure. Okay. The Orange County Water District is adjourned.
Very good.